Well, today we're taking Jaw to a new park. This ought to be fun. I haven't been there yet, but I've heard good things, so Daze with Jordan the Lion begins in the park. Well, that's kind of funny because that kind of reminds me of something we're gonna vlog today. Well, not exactly what I expected, but it is a little park. Well, I guess this is technically the dog play area. This is right under the underpass, or the overpass, or whatever you'd want to call it, I guess, and I don't know, this was just barren land for so long. Kind of surprised anything's here now. Well, I guess this actually is pretty cool now that I look at it. There's all kinds of little rocks and things for the dogs to climb and play on while you're over here, so maybe it will be a cool park. I know, not very big, not much running around, but there are little obstacle courses for you to do, Jaw. The funny thing is that while you're here, you're looking right at the apartment building from Sunset Boulevard. Yep, definitely not what we're accustomed to for a dog park, but he seems to be enjoying it. I think he's kind of starting to figure out the deal around here. He likes to hop on things. What you doing down there? Why don't you come up here with me? Jaw, come here. Can you get up here? Since it's a new park, I'm having to teach him a little bit. Let's see if I can get him to kind of roam up here on this grassy ledge. Hey, Jaw, come here. Are you coming up here too? He seems to like it, that's all that matters. He can't really turn it loose and go running around, but there's no other dogs here anyway now, so he can go around and just sniff, which is a lot of the times all he does at the park anyway is just sniff. So what I was thinking of doing for the vlog today was actually taking us over to what's now Paramount Studios. At one time it was even Desilu Studios, but before that it was one of the top 5 studios in Hollywood, one of the major 5, and it was the first studio in Hollywood to actually be made to make talking pictures. You having fun? You like it here? That's kind of cool. There's some property here that's really not much more than a few parking spaces and nothing else, but if you look attached to the tree over here, there's actually one single solitary swing. See that? He just likes his freedom. Well, unfortunately, that is not the radio tower we're looking for today. Unfortunately, the classic RKO tower is no longer here. Today I'm taking us over to the former home of RKO Pictures. In 1928, the head of RCA, David Sarnoff, and the head of Keith Albee Orpheum, Joseph Kennedy, and also the father of John F. Kennedy and Bobby Kennedy, brought together their 2 companies to form what was now a 5th leading studio production company here in Hollywood, RKO Pictures. Now, even though unfortunately RKO never really found a way of making a profit, they did leave an indelible mark on the history of cinema. Well, right here it was, the former home of RKO. Now, you classic movie fans will recognize this. RKO always started out with showing their radio tower that used to be attached to the very top of that globe, and thank God at least they painted it back to looking like a globe. There for a long time the whole thing was painted yellow like the rest of the building. But it all started here. I mean, for a lot of careers. Lucy was making movies here. Cary Grant would make a lot of movies here. John Wayne would make a lot of movies here when he was with Republic. He liked being here, so they'd loan him out. He actually made quite a few here. I think like 8 movies. But this is a place that actually gave us the career of Katharine Hepburn. She was a stage actress in New York, and David O. Selznick was a young producer here that was in charge of going out and acquiring new talent. And a lot of us know David O. Selznick for being the man who brought us Gone with the Wind in 1939. But he was here for about 15 months, and he was the person that he was smart enough to realize that there was a lot of untapped talent that could really make an impact, and so he gave people like George Cukor, Marion Cooper, George Stevens, all those people a chance to run with an idea and create genres out of it. I mean, RKO would go on to be known for its screwball comedies, but it would also be known for kind of being the home of the genre of bringing the Broadway musicals to life, because RKO was also the same picture company that gave Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers, their first scene together dancing on stage, and then they would go on to make a ton of movies, and they would actually be one of the rarities for RKO where they were year after year considered and voted one of the highest box office draws in the business. But we also had Charles Laughton behind these walls on these sound stages. Charles Laughton portraying the Hunchback of Notre Dame with the very first performance by Maureen O'Hara, her first performance in the US anyway. Bette Davis was getting her start here. I mean, it's unbelievable. Cary Grant and Katharine Hepburn made Bringing Up Baby here. And this is also the studio that had a wild idea of taking this, well, I mean, there's no other way of calling it. It was a film called Creation, where a man was trying to invent the slow motion photo technique of stop motion photography, and had put together a film of dinosaurs. And so Marion Cooper, being the great brain that he was, wanted to bring to life the story of King Kong. And so it was behind these walls that Fay Wray would be suspended in a mechanical hand covered in fur, and those would be the scenes that you would see King Kong lifting her up, and they would film a lot of it using a giant model of King Kong's head and a giant model of a mechanical hand that moved up and down and could open and close and everything. But then they would also use 18-inch high models to create some of the effects as well. And if you watch a lot of that movie, you can see in some of the close-up shots, you can see the fingerprints and just the hair moving on King Kong, for the way that they would have to subtly move each piece and then film it, and then another piece and then film it, and another piece, finally becoming one of those monumental movies that was something nobody had ever seen. And they actually filmed a handful of it out on what would become later known as the MGM 40-acre lot. That was actually originally RKO's property, and RKO also had this property, and they had a property like a ranch out in Encino. So many great things were done here. I mean, it's unbelievable to see that. And like I said, basically their problem was they could just never be profitable. They had so many grand ideas that just never could produce a profit. One of their first things that they did when they became a film company was that they signed Rudy Vallee, who was a big singer in those days but had never acted, put him in a movie, and it was a total flop. I don't think he ever did anything again. And then they were trying to compete with other film companies by creating a movie per week, releasing a movie per week. And the problem with that is that in order to do that, most companies that would do things like that were the lower budget companies, and they would actually kind of do almost a production line style where there was no individuality. And this company, in contrast to that, had people like George Cukor and George Stevens and Marion Cooper, who had these great ideas. So their projects would often go over budget, and at the same rate, the company of RKO thought it would be a good idea to invest a lot of their money into buying up theaters all over the country so that they would have a place to show their pictures. And unfortunately, this just put them, even within like 2 years, millions of dollars in debt. They would eventually take on multiple partnerships with other production companies and film companies trying to keep it afloat, and they would have a lot of success, but they never could really make a profit. Their successes would either balance or almost balance out all their failures. And it's unfortunate that at the end of the 50s, it was just pretty much all over, became nothing more than just a name on print. But there were, I mean, this was the studio that a lot of people knew, because this was when Howard Hughes was making a movie with Miss Russell and had to have a custom brassiere created for her. Now, even though it's lauded it is maybe the greatest picture of all time, when it originally came out, it got great reviews but didn't make a profit. It was Citizen Kane. Citizen Kane was also filmed here. And RKO was also very fortunate in those days because they struck up a deal with a man named Walt Disney, and they were the company that was in charge of releasing the Walt Disney Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and the other animated pictures, which actually became a very profitable thing. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs for a long time was the highest grossing picture on screen. One of the problems they did run into, though, with Orson Welles is that they gave Orson Welles complete control over Citizen Kane, many of you may know, and a bulk of the story was based off of William Randolph Hearst. So of course William Randolph Hearst did not appreciate the movie when it came out, and for years would basically try and destroy any profits RKO could make in his papers. And RKO was also responsible for giving a lot of what were considered washed-up stars a second chance. People like Mary Astor and Henry Fonda, Bing Crosby, Gary Cooper. Gave them all a second chance and they all became names again. RKO would also go down as one of the greatest B-movie houses of all time as well, bringing us The Cat People and I Walked with a Zombie. Just bringing all these science fiction movies to life. They also would go on to make many of the Tarzan pictures. Look at the side of that van. Now, many people would go on to have great careers here. Katharine Hepburn would win her first Academy Award, while an RKO star, Irene Dunne, would make Cimarron here, which would be a great movie. Barbara Stanwyck would make great movies here. Cary Grant, even Alfred Hitchcock would make a handful of movies for RKO. Cool. Now out there on the 40-acre lot, or what it would later become known as the 40-acre lot when it was RKO, they filmed part of King Kong out there, and David O. Selznick in 1938 and 39 would also rent out that entire space to make Gone with the Wind. But out there in Encino, that's where some of the shots of Mary's house were from It's a Wonderful Life, because RKO also made It's a Wonderful Life, the great Frank Capra masterpiece holiday classic. Also, thank you RKO for giving us Robert Mitchum. Now this whole site has changed since the days RKO owned it. They actually opened up this center spot. RKO used to do kind of the same thing here. They used to advertise what their upcoming pictures were along this wall and upcoming projects. And now over here where the opening and the gate is, you can tell that that used to be a whole wall that went across there. And now, since it's all after became Desilu, Lucy would have her offices here and they would do a lot of the Desilu, Star Trek and things like that. Then it would become part of CBS, and now I think it's back to Paramount. Or I'm not 110% sure if I'm correct on this, but the last time I was on this lot I was actually working on a Nickelodeon show for a day, and the stage that we were on was the stage that Happy Days was filmed on, and I believe it was that one right there in front of us. Pretty sure. Scott Michaels was telling us when he took us out on that tour that there's always talk that they're going to demolish this corner section of Paramount, which was RKO and Desilu, and luckily that all has kind of survived. At least the building with the world on it, what was the focal piece of the antenna and everything for the beginning of all the RKO pictures. At least for historical sake they've kept that as of now, and hopefully that will continue. And this is also, right over here is where Scott was telling us in that tour that Marilyn would look out her window at the orphanage and look down here where her mother was working as a film cutter for RKO. Here you can see all the star wagons, so they're clearly filming something right on the other side here and need the extra space. These are usually production trailers and wardrobe trailers for the stars. And then this section right up here, this entrance at Paramount, there's a handful of really, really great classic photos of Lucy right there at those doors. When Desilu was the owner of this. And if you want to see more of that photo, as well as the inside of this whole studio, this part of Paramount, go look up my Paramount Studios backlot tour. I worked here one day and showed what was filmed on a lot of those stages, showed where Lucy's dressing room was, where her trailer and all that stuff, or where the room was that they filmed her show, and I also match up her right there in front of that as well. And like I said, in the late 40s, Howard Hughes became a partner and then basically muscled his way into acquiring it and really wasn't able to do much with it himself, make it profitable, so he got rid of it a short time thereafter as well. Now this was all part of RKO and Desilu as well. That stage 29, you can actually kind of see it. There's the street sign that says Leonard Nimoy Way, and that's because that soundstage was Star Trek. The original Captain Kirk and Spock Star Trek. Now it's Dr. Phil. And that TV show The Doctors, or The Docs, or whatever. If you look close, you can see those old doors there, right there on the side. Kind of curious as to what exactly they would have used those for, because now it comes out onto an awning. I know that's where they house their audience and stuff before they take them into that facility. Look at that candy corn tag in the wall. I don't think that's one of the Dead Sea Scrolls. And here's another reference, so if you didn't get the reference earlier, this actually was referring to Bringing Up Baby, starring Katharine Hepburn and Cary Grant. Oh, take a look at that. One of the interesting things about RKO is that since they were just starting once Talking Pictures had already come out, and they were the first studio to actually go into making pictures and only doing talkies, they actually had to hire a whole new crew of people to figure out how to mic actors that were going to be moving around stage, because all the people that had worked for anything to do with RKO before that had been people that were working for RCA, which was primarily a radio company where everyone stood around a microphone and all went right into the same microphone. So they had to become pioneers in how to mic and get good audio, as well as stop motion photography, making the first full-length film, King Kong, in stop motion. I need to come over here to this Rite Aid. I need to get a notebook. I've run out of extra pages in my notebook for all my ideas for vlogging. We don't want that, do we? Plus this Rite Aid has all these awesome murals of Old West stars. Well, yeah, I mean, I guess you could call Pocahontas an Old West star, but more like this, like John Wayne. Kind of strange who they've decided to put up here, because some are real people, some are actors. Well, you know what I mean. There's Gene Autry. Perfect, they have him. Well, good evening, Lionhearts. I hope you guys all enjoyed learning a little bit more about RKO. I assume most of you had heard of RKO before, had seen something by RKO, and if you didn't know the story of Citizen Kane or the Magnificent Ambersons or anything like that, I hope this gave you a little bit of an introduction that will make you go want to see Bringing Up Baby or King Kong or just any of the great titles that they produced. Have a great night, everyone. I want to thank Laura St. John for making a donation to my page or my channel, and if anyone else would like to make a donation, the links are at the end of this video. Have a great night. We'll see you all tomorrow, and I think what I'm going to do tomorrow, there's actually two things that I'd like to do there, so I might make two separate vlogs out of it, so we'll see what happens. Have a great night. Goodbye.